Welcome back to Barcelona Metropolitan. We're going to be talking today with Klevtsova from the international law firm of Klev&Vera. We're going to be talking specifically about something that's very relevant to the international community, and that has to do with buying property in Spain. So what we're going to talk about are the different processes and how things might differ from the countries where you come from. So with us today, we have Klevtsova. Anna, can you do a brief introduction about yourself, and then we'll jump right into the questions.
Sure. Thank you, Victor. And it's a pleasure to be here with you today. I work for Klev&Vera law firm, and we attend clients from all over the world in all sorts of different legal matters, including the property purchase and immigration. So, of course, it will be a pleasure to speak about these matters.
All right. So let's jump right into it. What is the process if you want to buy a property in Spain?
Sure. Basically, we have three main steps here. And normally it starts with the reservation agreement. That is after you found the property, after a long search, usually, that you like. And normally the reservation agreement involves paying 1% of the purchase price. And the agent usually brings a prepared form that they just like a sort of template that then you just need to fill with your details. And of course, they will push you to sign it on the spot and make the transfer. And then it comes a down payment contract, or arras, as it's called in Spanish. And there you would normally be required to pay 10% of the purchase price. And then finally, the deed will need to be signed in front of a notary public. And that is when you officially becomes the owner in front of the third parties. And at the notary signature, you will need to pay the rest of the price and you will receive the keys. And the price is usually paid either by bank checks or by immediate transfer on the spot through the Bank of Spain. These are the main steps in the process.
Okay, well, it sounds like you certainly have a major command of the process. And so can you talk to me a little bit about due diligence? Where does this occur and what are the challenges?
Yes, it is very important, and we highly recommend to everyone to go through a due diligence, as in any property market you can find all sorts of issues. And ideally, the due diligence would take place between the reservation agreement and between the down payment. So you don't need to pay a significant amount of money if any issues for some reason will come up during the due diligence. And how it starts, if you are buying it directly from the seller, or if the agency is involved, either the seller or the agent will need to provide you the necessary documents so you can review them. And normally what happens in practice is that they keep it to a very strictly required minimum. And then what happens is the buyers discovers many characteristics of the property later, when it is already too late to react. It is really important to go through the as many documents as possible and to request the agent or the seller to provide them.
Okay. Well, talking about the documents, what documents can a buyer or should a buyer claim to see and to be able to validate for themselves?
The most important one here, and that is the one that you will always receive for sure, is an updated extract from the property registry. You need to make sure of the date, that it is recent, not like from last year, but basically from the week before or so. That is usually how it works. They have the updated extract, and in this document you will see who the registered owners are, what is the registered surface, and if there are any burdens on the property, such as a mortgage or some sort of embargo, preferential rights, or any tax debts that they've been recorded, etc. But apart from that, you will also need to see a copy of the purchase, of the acquisition deed by the seller, how he himself or herself got it, the certificate of fitness. If we are talking about a residential property, it is obligatory to have it in order to sell it as a residence, as a dwelling. Then there is also the energy efficiency certificate, the certificate of technical inspections of the building, that in Spanish is called ITE. cadastral reference, then you need to check last paid land tax, which is called EB in Spanish, and also such things as utility bills and also certificate from the community of owners, if we are talking about an apartment, to check that there are no payment pending debts. We also recommend always to request copies of the most recent acts from the meeting of the neighbors. In those, you can see many issues of what is happening to the building, and if there are any things that you will be concerned as a owner. And also you can check if they have the certificate from the local town hall to make sure that the property complies with the local zoning laws. That is not exhaustive, because depending on what you can see from the purchase deed, you may need to see additional documents to check that everything is clean.
Well, clearly, this is not the first time that you've been doing this. That's not an exhaustive list. I'm sure you have a much more.
It is, yes. You cannot imagine how many issues can come up after you start checking thoroughly the status of the property, and indeed there can be many issues.
So, talking about that, what are some common problems you see that come up during a due diligence process?
If we are talking about city apartments that are located like apartments, the most frequently found matters can be that the surface or the square meters of the building don't correspond between the property registry or the certificate of fitness or the cadastre. And that difference is especially often in penthouses or attics, as they are called in Spain. Because that there were some extensions that often were not registered and often were not done with the proper license. Then in city apartments and city buildings, especially in big towns such as Barcelona, we often find out that the building didn't pass a technical inspection, and that can result in a significant sum of money for you when you buy it, and you were not informed of that. And that is a very, very often, that's what occurs very often. And also in big cities, you would need to be careful with potential fines for illegal tourist rentals. Yeah. And then if we are talking about rural areas and villas, when you buy like a separate house, very often what we find is that the villa or the building was made on the land that was prepared for agriculture, but is not authorized to have it as a dwelling. And that is just really a surface, because when you start really looking into it, a wide variety can come up.
Okay, and so what happens if, in your experience, if somebody goes in and after the purchase has been made, some defects were detected that were not found during the due diligence? What rights does a buyer have in those situations?
In that case, it would be interesting to know when exactly that happens, because if that happens between the reservation or arras, the down payment, or after you already paid they made the down payment, but you haven't yet signed the notary deed, then you can claim to return the money that you already paid. And for that, it would be very helpful if you have specific clause included in the reservation contract already, or in the down payment. Or you can just negotiate to reduce the price accordingly to deal with the problem that came up. And if, however, that happened after you already completed the purchase, after you already signed it at the notary, it will be a little bit more difficult, because usually in the notary deeds, they include that you have visited the property and accepts it with all the conditions. However, the Spanish law provides the protection for buyers in case of hidden defects. But in that case, it is likely that you would need to go to court to claim the compensation or the return of the refund. So it is always better to make sure that when you write the notary deed, to make sure that your rights in that sense will be clearly protected.
Okay, excellent. So make sure the plan it'll save you a lot of hassle. All right, and can you talk to us about taxes? When you purchase a property, who pays the taxes and how much are they?
Normally, all the taxes are paid related with the purchase are paid by the buyer. And we would be talking, if it is a second-hand market, it would be a property transfer tax that's called ITP in Spanish. And if it is a new property, like it's just newly built, it is VAT tax. And usually, the second-hand taxes vary depending on the region, but we are talking normally about 10% of the purchase price. The buyer will pay the notary fees, and the property registry fees will depend on the particular, on the value of the property as well, and on the notary. And we can be talking about between 1 and 2% of the purchase price.
Okay.
And then some agencies in Spain also charge a commission on the buyer, not deducting from the purchase price, but separately. And that is something that you would know, of course, before you start.
Okay.
The only part that the seller pays here is the so-called increased value tax or plusvalia. All the rest is paid by the buyer.
Okay, so value added by the seller only. And then a question that comes up for people who are potential investors and are non-residents in Spain. Can a non-resident obtain a mortgage here in Spain?
Yes, it is possible. And in that case, you just need to contact different banks and see what conditions they can offer. And what happens is that they will ask you to provide the documents or all the proofs of your financial status back in your home country, and to see that you are capable of paying that mortgage. And the amount that they will give it to you will in no case be higher than 70% of the purchase price. But it is possible to get a mortgage by non-residents.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'm sure we have many more questions, but you're here to answer them, and I don't want to take too much of your time. So if you have anything else to say, please say them now. But otherwise, look down beneath here so that you get all the details for Klev&Vera. Anna, it's always a joy to have you on board and to give us good advice to the international community and for people who are considering purchasing a property and they are, outside of Spain. I'm sure you give tremendous value in helping them to navigate this process. Anything else you want to add?
Victor. I think that's it for now. We can arrange another conversation later if you want to talk about something more specific. And of course, we are always happy to answer different questions that people can have, and you can contact us in our social networks or just send us an email and we will be happy to respond.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Make sure to follow Klev&Vera International Law Firm at Barcelona Metropolitan. Talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.